Napoleon III, nephew of Napoleon I, Bonaparte, who sort of conquered Europe, he loses the Franco-Prussian War against the Germans in 1870. He flees to England with his wife and his family, and dies only 3 years later. The Empress, they're settled down in Kent in Chislehurst. The Empress puts him in the local Catholic church, because when the son comes to the throne, then he'll go back to Paris. His son, the only child they had, the Prince Imperial, Prince Louis, dies in 1879, fighting for the English against the Zulu in South Africa, Rorke's Drift and all that sort of thing. And so the Empress decides that the line has ended, Napoleon Bonaparte's line has gone completely. There will never be another Emperor of the French who was a Bonaparte. And so she looks to buy land to extend the church in Kent. Protestant landowners around, they won't sell to Catholics to extend the church. she has a friend who's a staff officer at Sandhurst, which is the officer training college in England, which is just north of him. And he says there's a house for sale, and there's land across from the train track, and the family's very happy to sell it to you. You can do what you like with it. So she says, great. She buys that in 1880 and starts refurbishment of what she calls her little English cottage. And the petit salon, the small salon, the small sort of morning dining room area, it has a window the same size as the windows upstairs in the church. But that's the sort of the small living room, as it were. And she starts construction of here in 1883. The architect is Gabriel Datailleur, who's a French architect. And the only other big thing he's done in England is Waddesdon Manor for the Rothschilds up in Buckinghamshire, which is a French chateau just plonked in the middle of English countryside. But so, the sarcophagus itself was donated by Queen Victoria, and she writes these little letters to the Empress. She says, I thought you might need this. And she sends an Aberdeen granite sarcophagus. I thought you might need this, and she sends 20 horse troop outriders for the procession. I thought you might need this, and it's Lady Curzon, one of her ladies-in-waiting's, a Catholic chaplain. So she sends a priest, just in case you don't have it, you know. So Queen Victoria basically organises Napoleon III's funeral. And the Empress is completely devoted to Queen Victoria for the rest of her life because of that and because of the hospitality she showed. On the other side, we have here the Prince Imperial, Prince Louis, who, as I said, died fighting against the Zulus. He was trained in the British Army, Woolwich College, which no longer exists. And then when the Zulu War started, the French all spoke about in the newspapers about how, you know, he wasn't bothering to even, you know, go and fight for the people protecting him. So he got a commission on the front line, and it was an ordnance troop, so chaps who draw maps. But obviously maps for generals are completely useless in their last month's battlefield. They want next month, next year's. So you need to be 50 miles, 100 miles into enemy lines. It was incredibly dangerous work. And so he was in one of these troops. His troop was ambushed, and as they were riding away, his saddle of his horse snapped, and he fell to the ground. He died with 18 spear wounds to his face and to his chest. He was a young man, he was in his 20s, and this completely crippled the Empress for decades. Just this idea of, you know, this, everything she was sort of laying the future of the family on was completely gone. Her entire family was gone. The flowers at the bottom here are placed by Princess Beatrice, who was the youngest daughter of Queen Victoria, and was about the same age as Prince Louis. And the idea is that they would have married, probably. So she placed the flowers, they're ceramic flowers, so they're exactly the same ones. The Empress is up here. So she dies in 1920. Her son dies in 1879. She dies in 1920, 41 years later. She lives a long life. She wears black the rest of her life for her husband and for her son, but she lives a full life. Farnborough is known for the airport, and she's on the first flight from Farnborough Airport. And everyone's worried she's either going to have a heart attack or a plane will crash. When it lands, she says, can I go up again? World War I, she opens her house up to French injured officers. And the French government saying that not a single French officer is allowed to step foot on her estate. So the monks here open to the French, and she opens to the Belgians. And she regularly visits them. She knits ferociously socks for troops on the front line in World War I. And So she can't quite work out how to put the heels in them. So she sort of makes these tubes, hands it to her ladies in waiting, they go out into the other room saying, this is wonderful, thank you ever so much. Go into the other room, unsew it all and redo it all again. They send it on. She dies in Spain, a Spaniard by birth, she dies in Spain, and has a state funeral in Spain. She comes to work on the train via France to England, and then has a state funeral in England. The King of Portugal was here, the King of Spain, the Prince of Monaco, the King of the Belgians, the King of England was here. So all the crown heads of Europe were here, really. Notably, the President of the French and the French ambassador to England were not here. The Abbot Dom Cabrol, our first abbot, who was a French monk, with a French flag laid over her coffin, he said in his homily, in his eulogy, he said, Madame, where are we? Are we in Versailles Palace? No. Are we in the Tuileries Palace? Are we in Fontainebleau? Are we at the Louvre? No. We are in Farnborough. And he takes off the French flag and puts over a Union Jack. And he says, Madame, you are an English lady and we are your English monks. He says, you have offered us hospitality, so now we offer it to you. And that is why we continue it here, that same sort of principle. Very noticeably, that was a flat wall. The Empress had no idea of construction of a place for herself to be put in here, in the church whatsoever. And the monks had that carved out so that she could put pride in place as the patroness. For the very young men amongst us who want to ring the bell, it was 2020, centenary. We had the bell cast. One of our monks cast it, Brother Benedict, who met Brother Benedict at the sacristy. And so he had it cast in Slovakia, where he's from, with his godson as a professional bell founder. But the idea is that hopefully it will go up on the top of the bell tower with all the scaffolding. So that's a very brief. I know you need to be running.
Oh, lovely.
And if you want to ring the bell, go ahead. Go on.
Yeah.